My name is Maya, and wow, I'm really excited for this talk. Sure, this is the first time I'm doing live. Okay, cool. So I'm Maya, and I'm going to talk about dynamic site and static site with deployment. So you may wonder, static is static. How do we make static site from dynamic site from static site? And what do we have anything to do with deployment here? Let's find out. Before that, let's talk a bit about me. So I'm a senior front-end developer at Cloudinary, and this is my URL that basically contains everything about me, and it still show you my photo when you use this URL on the browser. Yep, so I'm from Cloudinary, you see, and you can always find me on social media at Maya Shavin. I'm a React developer at my work, but in fact, I'm also a Vue lover, and I'm also a core maintainer of Storefront UI, which is component UI frameworks that dedicate for e-commerce written in Vue. And we have a React version coming very soon. And I'm also an organizer of Vue.js Israel, which is the Vue community for developers in Israel. And I'm a blogger for JavaScript. You can find me on Medium, almost on the website for blog, And I'm also a bookworm. I mean, I like reading books, any book. Okay, so let's start. I think everyone was talking a bit about Jamstack, what it is, so you got to get a good idea of what a Jamstack is. But let's just recap. So Jamstack is actually JavaScript, APIs, and markup, and which means that instead of having backend codes, we no longer need it, and we only need to do everything in client-based JavaScript. And because of that, we don't need any more web servers, and instead we have serverless function. And also, we don't deal with database directly. We deal with reusable APIs. That doesn't mean that you don't have database, but you don't have to build a database inside your application. You can use the database from a third party or from a CMS that give you an endpoint API to use in your application. That reduce a lot of headache over the time when you do development on a large-scale application. And one important thing is that instead of runtime generating page, which is everything on the go, now we have build time template generating on the page, and templates will pre-generate during the build time and arrange it into files according to the file system, which moving us from using data-driven approach to file-driven. Everything will be cached and will be organized according to file in the hosting platform, and will deploy to user according to their route, to their request route. So in short, Jamstack means that you can have static sites with dynamic functionalities, which means you have a static site, but you also can do all the things that dynamic site has. There's no restriction anymore, like authentication or authorization. That's cool, right? So what use case are we looking at today? We're going to look at Cloudy Batch, which is my project that aims to generate badges for conference attendees on the real time and allows attendees to personalize their badge on real time, and also can allow them to add more information, personal notes about the conference during the conference according to their needs. And the stack we chose is the Gridsome, which is Vue static site generator. It's awesome. It's written on Vue, so it's lightweight, and it's a static site generator. And GraphQL, and because it has GraphQL data layer, a single source of truth, and then we can hook data block at the CMS endpoint API with GraphQL to handle on of out data source. And of course, we're using Cloudinary to generate the patch. Like you can see on my top right corner, the patch will generate on runtime with your image and everything and deliver to user. It's good because it's one data layer. So in the future, if we found out that Storyblok is not very suitable for our application, we can actually remove it and change it to other CMS or other data source that we found more suitable, and we still don't need to touch our base code because we only deal with GraphQL and external API. And finally, we will deploy it in Zite as a static hosting. So how does this stack perform in deployment time? First, because it's a static site generator, it has very fast first contentful pend and time to react interactive with user. And also it has very fast deployment because it's using delivery to user because it's serving through the CDN and as a HTML file. And also because of that, it has higher security. No one can really hack an HTML file because there's nothing to hack here. Everything is in CDN and static. And it's cheaper, easy scaling. Again, because it's serving through CDN, so you can scale it very, very fast. And hosting is cheaper because you just hosted a whole bunch of files. You don't need to have complex server setup or anything else. So, and this happened after it's deployed. So this is the performance measurement of the application on runtime. So does it mean that static now is equal to dynamic, or server-side generator is equal to server-side rendering equal to static site generator? Well, let's take a look at use case of Cloudy Patch. We have attendees register to Cloudy Patch, and Cloudy Patch will get all the information generated in a list of batch based on the list of attendees. If there's more user that register to Cloudy Patch, the database will trigger deploy hooks through a HTTP request to Zite, and Zite will trigger the build done by Gridsome, and only after Gridsome finish building the application, rendering the page again, it will deploy the new version of Cloudy Patch, and then user can see reflect the new updated information live. So what can go wrong here? If, let's say, if we have more user, a lot of users come in the conference at the last 5 minutes before the conference start, they need to have the batch, right? If the main difference between server-side rendering and static site generator here is that with dynamics, with server-side rendering, which is dynamic size, you don't have to go through the whole process of build and regenerate and deploy, because everything is generated on the fly. In the other hand, static site cannot avoid this process, and you have to wait. So let's take a look on how can it affect our performance. First, let's take a look at the hook. Assuming that new attendee come in, register, and the new entries of new attendee will be on Storyblok. Storyblok will trigger a hook by HTTP request to Zite, and Zite receive the request, trigger the new build, and put the deployment. There is one problem here, is that there will be a delay between the sending of the HTTP request and the receiver of this request. But this is unavoidable because it really depends on how fast Storyblok send the request and how fast Zite receive and handling this request. It can only be improved on these two sides. What about between the build and deployment? Well, let's see, why do I choose Gridsome? Well, I choose Gridsome because first of all, it's a view static site generator. And secondly, is because it's the fastest static site generator for Vue.js. Recently, Tommy is the creator of Gridsome, did a small comparison between VuePress and Gridsome on thousands file, which you can say is about 1,000 data entries in the data source and database. And Gridsome won by far. It's like taking about 13 seconds to build everything. Similarly, you can talk the same thing with Gatsby, which is for React community. So how do they make it fast? Let's take a look on how the build process look like in Gridsome. So first, it load on the data source from the CMS or any other source through the GraphQL schema, and then it start to generating the pages based on this data source. And then only after they generate all the files and pages, it start to process whatever image have inside the application, and then process all the file generated and store it and hash it in the file system. The good thing is that it do have source data during build, which means that during runtime, you don't need to query for data again. And so user don't need to rely on the fact that you need to wait for communication with the database and then get the data and wait for it to display because every data already pre-generated. And that also means that you have access to data so you can catch unchanged file and then can build only new file from the new data entry. But at the moment, there's a very big problem. That's not like any other static site generator. It reviews every file. Everyone knows that. Every time when you trigger a build, it go through the whole process again to review every single file. And then it also have to process all the images and videos, whatever you have resources during the build time. And this can be a big problem, which can cause, in current time, in cloudy batch situation, user can see the batch of the list of attendee which is outdated, while the real data is still being built, being generated in the background. This and need to wait for deployment afterwards. This is when we have a latency and we have a UX implication because user don't know when to refresh. And when the build that is done, the deployment is done, user still need to refresh, and it can be happen in 1 second, can happen in 2 seconds, can happen in 5 minutes. You still need to refresh and hopefully you can catch it. So what can we do to improve this whole process of building? Technically, we can try to aim for a faster machine, which is a faster hardware. Well, building is depend on the speed of the machine. So if you have a faster hardware, you have a faster build. That's no doubt, theoretically. Or you can have a faster JavaScript, making JavaScript faster than any other language. Then on the build will get faster because on the static site generator written in JavaScript depend on this. Or you can have a faster bundle tool other than Webpack, because you still need to bundle your code, right? But again, this is really unrealistic because all of this is not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen in a week or next month. So, but we need the solution now and as fast as possible. So instead, we cannot make it faster, and we shouldn't try to make it faster. But we should try to make it smarter. By smarter, we can improve the fastness of the build in some way. So what can we do? First of all, one of the very common solutions we discussed among the community is to do incremental builds, which is the concept that allows the static site generator to catch and only build whatever change or whatever new. For example, in Gridsome situation, one of the suggestions is that we only fetch what is the new data entry from the database instead of fetching every time, because anyway, you already have all the data loaded from the previous build. And then this means you have less data source loading time. You don't need to load about 10,000 data entry anymore. You only need to load 1 or 2 new data entry and try to build the pages for these specific data entries. One of the things that the platform can help for this is that they can provide a new data entry info on the build trigger. Anyway, the CMS will trigger the hook to Zeit or to any other platform, and Zeit will trigger the build on Gridsome. So why not just send in information needed through the hook? and Zeit will get this information and pass down to Gridsome, and Gridsome will know exactly what it needs to do. Or the CMS can actually directly communicate with Gridsome by providing some sort of a field that's saying this is the new and this is the old one. And Gridsome can also using some kind of a hash lock to make sure that it can compare between the previous build and the current build to see which one should be rebuilt. The second approach is that Highbridge. It's combined between server-side rendering and static site generator. It helps in a way that's to lower down the time when you need to pre-generate static page. You build whatever is static and you do loading demand for whatever is dynamic. Share the load on client side and let the build for static page minimize as possible. Or you can also display a server-side rendering version of a page, a ghost page, while waiting for that page to be rebuilt or to be built in the background. This approach is good. It's very good if you need to do something like on real time, like in a cloudy patch situation, when users actually want to see themselves on page right after they register and will not want to wait for the build to be built. But this one needs a very good platform support, and I don't think that other than Zeit, other platforms support the Highbridge approach, because you need to actually know when to switch between server-side rendering and when to switch between the static site generator version of the application. The third approach is that outsourcing whatever image and video you have in the application. This to reduce the process time for image and video to 0. Once you outsource images and video and let them do the optimization for themselves, you don't have to worry about it. Even if you need to refresh, you already prefetch whatever is optimized, and it saves the bandwidth, save the fetching time, save also the storage amount in the hosting platform, because you still pay for how much you store. If you have a lot of files generated or a lot of pages in your application, this is critical. And this also can affect the build time, as you can know. The next thing you need to do, and it's very important, is that you need to remove all the legacy code. Some say that I don't care about legacy code. I don't care about this component. I have it here. I don't really use it, but I will use it somewhere. Just remove it if you don't use it, because bundle would still bundle all of this, and it helps the bundling faster. If you have too many legacy code and you're not using it anyway, and you don't have any library or tool to help remove all of this on bundle time, it would take a lot of time for bundling and make it the bundle to more harder, and then cause the build to be slower. Let's say if you're using a lot of CSS, and CSS is hard to know which one is legacy and which one is not, then the whole bundling of CSS file, which is not being used in client side, will just make things worse for your application. So just remove it if you don't need it. Next is deduplication. And then do a deployment only when it needed. Zeit have this feature built in, which allow you to remove the storage page and make sure that there's no duplicates needed, no duplicate when all the files generated. And this is good. Then another solution we can improve for building is progressive deployment. This is important to keep the gap, to lower the gap between the actual information on the user and the actual data on the database. We can deploy and update the new content instantly and silently on client side, and without the client to have to do refresh and refresh and refresh. Like, how do I know when I need to refresh the page in order to see some new information of the attendees, right? So if you can do progressive update on the site, user will see the new attendee reflex on that. This can be done with WebSocket or webhooks, whatever. But yeah, this is possible. Next and last one, you can do schedule deployment. This doesn't apply in the case of Cloudy Patch so much, but it applies for e-commerce site when you want to deploy with a lot of database update. Let's put it this way. Normally, if you have to trigger a new build one after the other, and whenever a new product is added, it can cause a lot of overhead on the building, and you pay for the building time also. So why not just make a build job, schedule it in the interval in the low peak time when you know that no one is likely to access your application. Similar to Cloudy Patch, but we can also build it in the break of the application, in the break of the conference, while wait and make it go faster by building in batch instead of building one after the other whenever the new attendee added. If we're using with hybrid approach, we can do this easily, and this will help to maintain our application, maintain our build, maintain our deployment in an order way. And lastly, let's summarize. So what should we do? We need to build smarter because it means we have it faster. And we need to use Gridsome for static site generator. It's fast, so use it. If you don't like Gridsome or you don't like Vue for some reason, use Gatsby for static site generator. Even if you have 1,000 files or anything, if you know that you don't really need to reflect on runtime, on real time, like whatever change in the database reflect instantly, then you can always use Gridsome because the build doesn't take more than 15 seconds for 1,000 pages. But again, it also depends. Using proper data source like CMS to allow incremental builds enabled on the static site generator. And this also means that you need to choose the proper static site hosting platform for all of this, because even if CMS support incremental builds, but it doesn't have, you don't choose the right static site deployment platform, it would just slow down everything. It would just make all of this not working together. And so you need to choose whatever is matched for your needs. Let's say if you're using hybrid, then you need to choose the platform that support hybrid. If you don't really care about hybrid or all this stuff, so you can choose the the normal static site platform that doing very fast delivery and very fast in catching and everything else. Again, choose whatever is match your need. But if for build, you need to choose the correct CMS and the correct deployment platform. And lastly, with the proper architecture, you can always make static sites at the dynamic site, even with a large amount of data entries in the database. And that's it. Thank you.